Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. Today we are coming to you from the State House in Trenton, where members of both the Senate and Assembly are in session. Now, there are a lot of issues and topics on the legislative agenda to be discussed during this lame duck session, but there are some key issues that are not being discussed on the floor. So we're going to take you inside so you can hear directly from lawmakers in Trenton. So if you're ready, let's get started. Senator Joe Cryan, can you talk a little bit about lame duck session today, some of the priorities you're trying to get through? I know there are some judicial appointments you're also working on. So what's on the agenda?
Well, today in particular, I think is highlighted by the amount of judges being renewed, not only those that are being reappointed, but 11 new judges as well. As you know, the judicial vacancy has been an ongoing concern, and this will put an impact into that. There are other issues today, fire sprinklers, a variety of other different type of issues. But I think overall in lame duck, I think what we're looking to do is begin the process of setting up for next year more than anything else. You'll see movement on affordable housing in a few weeks ahead. You'll see movement on other significant issues. And I think people will be pleased that we're moving forward and establishing a platform for 2024.
Especially, when it comes to those judicial appointments, the courts, civil cases, they're frozen, things are backed up. They were backed up before. Do you have bipartisan support? Can you talk just a little bit about how members are getting along and if this will continue to move forward in the new year?
Well, I think everybody recognizes the need, right? So you have to develop consensus on judicial appointments. It's a system that ultimately makes New Jersey one of the most effective and trusted judiciaries in the country. Remember, other states elect their judges. I don't think that's something we wouldn't prefer here. So you think you'll see more consensus? Folks understand, and I think you'll see a continuing movement on the vacancies. Look, we don't want people living in the same house when they want to be divorced, right? We don't want kids exposed to that either. So you'll see a more focused approach on that. Chairman Stack and Senate President Scutari have certainly been focused. But that process is a long one, Laura, and it is. Some folks wait a year, 2 years. Folks, today I can tell you I'm very pleased because some of our new judicial appointments are from Union County. Most folks have waited over 2 years.
Senator Joe Cryan, thank you for taking the time to talk.
Thanks. Always a pleasure, Laura.
All right. So Senator John Bramnick, back here in Trenton. One of the things that grabbed my attention is there are 11 new judicial nominations, but there's a lot of other activity going over here in Trenton. So can you tell me a little bit about what some of your priorities are today?
Well, no, we're not lowering any taxes today, I can tell you that. And I think there are areas we could reduce the cost to people in New Jersey. I haven't heard anything about that. We also have to attack the crime that we've seen in New Jersey. We have to kind of change bail reform so the real bad guys have to stay in jail. We haven't done anything in that regard. And today also, we didn't mention anything about Israel and the terrorism. And on September 11th, Israel came to our aid. So I thought it was important. There is a resolution. Hopefully we'll do it next time to talk about the terrorism that we saw in Israel.
What would you do different if you were in the majority?
Well, I would work on affordability, clearly, because affordability is a number one issue for the state. And I would also allow the public to come down to Trenton and speak before the legislature. They're allowed to do that in the council meetings. They're allowed to do that in commissioner meetings, but they can't speak here in front of the General Assembly or the Senate. I think the public should speak, and I would immediately pass legislation to let them talk directly to the legislature, because they talk in their homes, they talk at their dinner tables, but they can't speak directly except in committee meetings.
The brand that you talk about a lot of times is one of reaching across the aisle and working together.
How about just treating people with respect, civility? Character is important. So to me, Donald Trump's character is flawed, and what happens is, in the state of New Jersey, people look at national news. So they think all the Republicans are Donald Trump. And in my judgment, that's a really bad image for our party. And unless we change that, we're going to be in the minority. You shouldn't be afraid to stand up to Donald Trump and his bad character.
Senator John Bramnick, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Laura.
Lame duck season. I know you have two pieces of legislation, Senator, that you are particularly interested in today. One would give 17-year-olds the power or the right to vote in a primary. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
It's the new Voter Empowerment Act. It's the first bill I ever wrote. And really it's about the fact that once a voter, always a voter. And so how can we get young people more engaged? And so the idea here is we don't have to change anything in our Constitution. If a 17-year-old in the June primary is 18 by the November general election, they'd be eligible to vote. I can't tell you how many 17-year-olds have come to me so excited. Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, doesn't matter. It's a great way to get young people engaged.
I know during COVID a lot of young people were home watching TV, and they really did seem to get involved in a lot of issues and social justice. So is that what kind of sparked it, or is this something that you've been passionate about even prior to COVID?
I wrote this bill in 2016, so 2015 even. This is the first bill I ever wrote. Right? But what we've seen is climate change, and young people think about their future. They think about affordability. They think about jobs. And they're thinking about who it is that represents them. And so we know that nationally, young people aren't as engaged as we'd like them to be. I think this is a small but important step to bring them into our democratic process.
There is another piece of legislation that you are behind today that deals with mental health, and again, going back to the COVID issue, when so many young people were isolated, and they're still really struggling as they go back to school, or are not able to go back to school. So can you talk a little bit about that legislation?
So this is really about loneliness, which is a national epidemic. It's actually a worldwide epidemic that's only become worse after COVID with all of the isolation. We're just talking about young people. There's a loneliness epidemic in young people, but there's a loneliness epidemic in seniors. Mental health is a major issue, as you just indicated. So I had done some legislation pre-COVID that asked the Department of Health to start to study what was going on, and the statistics are devastating. Something like 80% of people with a mental disability of some kind experience severe loneliness. A physical disability, it's around 65%. Seniors, about half of all seniors, and of course teenagers. And so making sure, in an epidemic like this, something that has, some people have said, is equivalent, loneliness is equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. But this is an obvious thing that we can cure, and so what I'm starting to do now is let's incentivize innovative ways to bring people together, and to do that in a way to start to attack this loneliness epidemic that is not just, as I said, in New Jersey, but around the country and the world.
A lot of people may say, what is the legislature, what is the government going to do to help? They're leery of something. I'm from the government, I'm here to help.
Yeah, sure. So for instance, one of the things we're looking at is how can we use live performances as a way to bring people together in a way that's going to be accessible to everybody? How can we use comedy and the fact that people laugh? How about the fact that scientists have found that when you go to see a concert live, that your heartbeat starts to get synchronized with other people that are there. There's clearly something very powerful about when you bring people together. And so there are some great programs out there, and I think they deserve support. And so that's just one quick example of what we might do that would be creative and bringing people together in this post-COVID world.
It seems like almost a double-edged sword, because technology can bring so many people together, but sometimes it's technology that actually keeps us so separated from each other. So how do you strike that balance?
So, I agree. I think technology is a wonderful tool, but it does keep us apart. It's so much easier to be on our phones, to watch a movie at home. And so I'm not against any of that, but I want to make it so that it's easier, because the more we isolate ourselves, the harder it is to then come together. It feels uncomfortable. And so how can we lower those boundaries is what I'm looking to try to incentivize right now.
Senator Zwicker, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Always a pleasure, Laura. Thank you.
Senator Joe Vitale, there's a lot going on the floor today, and you have legislation dealing with smoking and casinos. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, in 2006, I am among many other legislators who were sponsors of the bill that banned indoor smoking, and we all know what that means today for us. And so, but unfortunately, back then, when we passed the bill in 2006, casinos were exempted from the ban. And now we're revisiting that ban. The argument was made years ago that if we banned smoking casinos, it would hurt business, and the casino industry would suffer. I didn't agree with that premise. But nonetheless, the bill was amended to exclude casinos. Now we're back 18 years later trying to get casino smoking banned. And I think we're close to getting that done. There's still opposition from the Casino Association. They say that if we ban smoking in casinos, somehow it will cause 3 casinos to close, thousands of people will lose their jobs. It's just, I don't even know what word I could use to describe how crazy that comment is. But we know from other studies that are done independently that if you ban smoking casinos, it may in fact increase business because literally thousands of people do not go to casinos because of the smoke. Banning smoking casinos will certainly increase business because there are thousands of people who don't go. They either have heart disease or other some kind of upper respiratory issues, or they have asthma, so they don't go to a casino. And those who do smoke, they will provide for outdoor smoking for them, just like they do in a restaurant. But to expose the workers, especially to secondhand smoke, to blackjack dealers and others who are literally just a couple of feet away from someone smoking in their face, they've suffered from heart disease and strokes and cancer because of that. And I don't know how we could do that to employees in an institution like that.
I think a lot of people actually might be surprised to hear that you can still even smoke in casinos. Can you smoke in casinos in Nevada? I actually don't know.
In Nevada you can, but in New York they will not. The tribals do not. They don't smoke in Delaware. Even some casinos in Pennsylvania, they're smoke-free. And so there's just a few left in Pennsylvania that permit smoking, of course, Atlantic City. So we don't believe that this will impact business. In fact, we think it'll help business.
And what type?
Save lives, by the way, because this is about, can you imagine smoking in a restaurant now and having the wait staff, or anybody else for that matter, exposed to secondhand smoke, or the patrons for that matter? In a casino, the law now says that 25% of the casino floor can be smoking, but it's intermixed in every other non-smoking area. And so it's not as though it's 25% way over there. It's all within the other gaming games.
Do you have bipartisan support on this legislation?
We do. We've been losing some support because the Casino Association has been saying how detrimental this legislation will be. We know it won't be, but they say what they say.
Senator Joe Vitale, thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Pleasure. Thanks, Laura.
All right, Senator Troy Singleton, a lot going on in the legislature today. Do you have any bills that you're particularly interested in today? Anything you're sponsoring? Lame duck, a lot of things to try and get through as we come to the year's end.
Yeah, well, today one of the big issues that we're going to work on is this idea of racial discrimination in appraisals. Housing is key to generational wealth, and too often that we're seeing all across the country, and the statistics bear this out, that certain types of homeowners based on their ethnicity and color are seeing their home values depreciated arbitrarily because of the appraisal process. So myself and my colleague, Senator Poe, are going to tackle that and address that today, trying to take some of that bias out of the appraisal process and hold those accountable who actually use things other than the value of the home to make a determination on said value of the home.
How did that even happen? I mean, you look at what the state has done or tried to do for affordable housing with Mount Laurel, and you're saying in the appraisal process there is a way to discriminate against. How did that happen?
Unfortunately, we still see some of the vestiges of things like redlining that we've seen historically that have been outlawed, but the sort of tenets of that still remain today. All across the country, New Jersey's not an outlier in that regard. So we're hopeful and eager that we're going to be able to put some downward pressure on that and actually make a difference in doing that today. Overall, though, here in the Senate, led by Senate President Scutari, we're going to be really focused on a continued work on accountability and affordability for our New Jersey residents, making sure we keep transparency first and foremost, but more importantly, look at how we can make New Jersey a more affordable place. It's something that we talked about in great detail during the last legislative cycle, and we want to finish strong on that endeavor.
Well, that's the thing. It is people live and work here, and they're not able to afford to. No matter what end or what stage of life they are, people retired, their pensions are taxed. They can't stay here even if they wanted to.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that everyone can live here, can grow a family here, can work here, retire here with dignity and peace, and want to stay in the state of New Jersey. That's our objective, and we got more work to do, and we're going to get to it today.
Senator Singleton, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you very much.
For Diane Gove, this time is bittersweet. The longtime lawmaker from Ocean County did not run for re-election after losing the oh-so-critical party line from the county organization last spring. Assemblywoman, as the year is coming to an end, there's a lot of activity in Trenton, a lot of issues people are trying to push through. So can I talk to you about some of your priorities as your time here in Trenton is coming to an end?
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm from the 9th Legislative District, and my district is large with seniors and veterans, and over the past 14 years, they have been my issues that I've been passionate for, is to helping seniors, to helping veterans. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for our veterans, and thank them all for their service and the current service individuals. But these are issues that I think we need to help make our lives, whether they're health issues for veterans, just mental issues, we need to help them through life. And I also feel very strong about women veterans because there's a lot of issues that they have that are different than male issues. So, but I'm very concerned about our veterans, so that's one of my concerns. And the other is to help our elderly and our aging. As I said, I'm from Ocean County, and we have probably the largest population of seniors, as I am a senior. But it's always been my passion to help them. I was a caregiver for my mom, and it's just very important that we can't leave them out and forget all about them. So these are issues that I have worked on over the years. Plus, I'm a retired high school teacher, so education is another very significant point. Property taxes have always been a major issue and continue to have an issue, and at least we're starting to have things such as Anchor and other programs that we're going to be having. So these are some of the things that I've been working on and try to make quality of life better for our aging, as our veterans, as everyone, but I have a little specialty in my heart for them.
You know your way around Trenton. You know how to use your voice. And when I look around, when I arrived at the State House, there was a Women's Political Caucus meeting, and you don't always see as many women that might have been here 10 years ago. It kind of ebbs and flows. So what are your thoughts on that and about engaging more people and getting them involved, whether it's at state, local, national level, women in politics?
I'm always been an advocate for women in politics. I mean, yes, you want the best person in there, but you need to get women. You need to have, you need diversity, because when you come to a discussion, you don't have everybody of the same mind. You need to put things together and hear from here. And women and men have different ideas of how to tackle a situation. They may want to, but how to tackle that the end game might be there, but to get to that end game, you need to get everybody's input. I came 14 years ago in my caucus. It was kind of high at the time, but over the years it went down. And a few years ago, or 2 years ago, our caucus went up. Well, for women. This year, the women's population has diminished tremendously. I think that's sad. I really do believe that there should be more women. I'm going to make a statement. In Ocean County, there are 4 legislative districts. I was the only woman legislator, and now I am none. So Ocean County has no representation of women in the legislature. And I think that's sad. And I might be retired, but I still have a voice, and I'm going to be out there advocating. And you need to advocate not just for women, but for for all minorities. You need to get people out. You have to tell them, you need to do this. This is important. And if you have an issue, you need to speak your mind. So there's plenty women out there, just like even on a national level. And I'm not getting into that. But no, we need more women to advocate for all, because they look at things differently. And that's important. You need to have everybody's input. And also, when you look at the numbers in population, what do you have?
51%.
You got it. And that's not what's in the legislature. So I'm sad about that. I would hope in my caucus that over the years that they'll get more women, and you need to, I know it's hard because some people say, well, I'm juggling family, I'm juggling my bit, I work. Well, you can throw another wrench in there, and it's just time management and everything. But we need to recruit more women. And you start earlier. That's the key.
Why do you think that there aren't as many women as there should be in the legislature?
I think there's a variety of reasons. I hate to still say it, it's a man's world. But also, it's the money. And sometimes women will go out, and who are the biggest fundraisers? Women, you get that, they'll make money. But when they go out it's hard. You're going out to ask for money for yourself. So you have to really push yourself to do that. And it's not the money. The money is one of the first things. You got to get people to support. And I see that right now on a national level. We have a woman candidate who is running for president in the Republican Party who's starting to get money, and I'm really happy about that because a lot of times you don't see that happening. It filters towards the men. So I think one of the things is you need to get people to support the finances. And then you just have to say, you get out there and you can do it. A lot of women say, oh, I'll sit back. Nope. Can't do that. You have to put yourself out there and say, I can make a difference. Look how you make a difference in your family. Look how you make a difference in your workplace. You can do that too in the government.
Well, now I feel motivated after talking to you. But one other thing I wanted to talk to you about is it's not just in the legislature, but when you look across at some of the appointments, boards, commissions, you don't see women representation.
Again, I hate to say it because I'm not, it still is a man's world. And they gravitate to the men in there. And women have to start opening their mouths. They have to advocate for themselves. And I think that's important. And you need women on the board. I've sat on boards. I've sat on hospital boards. You need that diversity because I look at things differently. And just to throw a thing out and say, oh, and same thing with a man or another person of minority or diversity, whatever, today. But you have a different point of view. You need to hear that. And then all of a sudden you can say, oh, okay, let's do it that way. Because, it's not cookie cutter. You don't have cookie cutter. It's like looking at women's health, males' health, African Americans' health, Latinos. You can't say this is for everybody because you can't look at that. It's all different. People's bodies are different. So you have to take care of their issues medically according to their heritage. We have to do that on a governmental level too.
Just a final thoughts as you're, again, leaving Trenton. What are you going to miss the most about this?
That's a good question. I think it's the idea, because I've always been involved in my community. And I think that's the thing. I'm still going to be in my community. But I always said, even when I taught, if I touched one child or one student, I've been successful. And here, when I've been a mayor and commissioner in Long Beach Township, and when I feel, oh, I think I just touched somebody's life. And that's how it is here. If a bill was passed, I was significant in getting a bill passed or helped them in some way, even in our constituent services, I feel I've been successful. And it's not about me, it's about the people. And I think that's the thing that I'm going to miss the most, is helping people, helping them have a better life, a quality of life or just something. So I still can do that. It's going to be in a different way. I haven't figured that out yet, but I think it's the public service.
They cannot dull your shine or your spirit. And Trenton is a small world.
It is.
So you never know who's going to come back in what capacity.
Yeah.
I don't feel like anybody ever really leaves Trenton once you're a part of this community.
Well, I feel like I've lived in New Jersey my whole life. I'm a Jersey girl. And it was like living, I lived on Long Beach Island on Ocean County. So it's me. That's my life. And I want to help my community as well as I wanted to help my state. So I just have to continue.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Oh my gosh. Assemblywoman Angela McKnight will be leaving the lower house as well. Come January, though, she's headed to the state Senate. Assemblywoman, we are walking around the State House talking to people, really looking at some of the work to wrap up as this year comes to an end, but this year has even more significance to you because you will be leaving the Assembly, but not leaving the State House. You are moving up to the state Senate. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm so excited. I've been an Assemblywoman for 8 years now. I did 4 terms, and come January, God's willing, I will be a senator for the 31st District. I have so many emotions. I'm happy, I'm sad because I'm leaving my colleagues, but I'm so happy that I have a new opportunity to help constituents on another level.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your priorities are when it comes to the people you represent and the issues that you feel most passionate about?
As I always say, I don't know everything. However, my constituents, they know much. And together, we always prevail. I always look at the people. I always take what the people, their actions of what's going on in the community, and I take that coupled with what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and those are my priorities. So I'm going into the Senate with the people's priorities.
As you're leaving the Assembly and about ready to go to the Senate, there aren't a lot of women in the upper house and the lower house. So can you just talk about your representation and how you would or would like to see maybe more women engaged, more women of color engaged, more representation of what the actual population really is in New Jersey?
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to the Senate on the shoulders of so many women, and I want to thank them for the women who have been in there and who continues to be there. And while I'm walking over to the Senate, I'm walking with hundreds and thousands of women. I'm a huge supporter of women, and I'm going to let our voices be heard at the table over in Senate. And if there is any women who want to run, go ahead and do it and run. So, truth be told, I'm going over there as a woman with women priorities as well as other priorities.
And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.